Perhaps you're here because you're curious as to how much money you could make if you join the military in the year 2022. So you want to know what's going to be in that bank account. So we're going to go through the 2022 pay scale and some scenarios to help you kind of figure that out. Now, this is the pay scale that's for the military, right? But a lot of the scenarios I'm going to be talking about is specifically more for Army because that's where my expertise is at as an Army veteran. And a lot of it is also mainly geared towards active duty because if you're a Reserves National Guard, well, this isn't the full pay you're going to be getting because you have to get a prorated version based on how many days during that month you did drill or were deployed or on orders or whatever the kind of thing. So a lot of this is mainly just geared towards like active duty Army individuals, but you can, kind of look at it still probably for other military branches and maybe doing some math, figuring out for Reserves and National Guard. But we're going to be talking about the 2022 pay scale, as well as some scenarios to help you figure out what you might be making and show you how you can kind of figure it out for yourself if I don't cover a scenario that, maybe you're in. So this is like initial rank, right? Someone who is joining directly into the Army, into the military. They have less than 2 years in the military. What is their paycheck going to be looking like? So that is mainly what we're kind of focusing on. So we're going to start off with very initial rank, right? E1. You don't have any college. You didn't get anybody to sign up for the military, the Army. So you have to come in the Army as the bare minimum rank as an E1. And that monthly pay looks like $1,833 before taxes get taken out, which breaks down to roughly $916 per paycheck because you get paid twice a month on the 1st and the 15th. So that monthly pay has to get split up into 2 paychecks. Now, this is $183 more than what you would have made if you joined the Army in 2021. So there is a slight increase. Now, in the previous year, in 2021, they actually did increase the pay a little bit if you were an E1 for more than 4 months. So that is no longer the case in 2022. It's the same pay no matter if you were in the Army as an E1 for 1 month or 5 months. It's the same pay chart. Now, however, from there, we go over to E2. So maybe you got a buddy to join the military. Maybe you had a few college credits, maybe a little bit of JROTC experience, something like that, that allowed you to come in the Army as an E2. Well, that looks like $2,055 per month, which breaks down to roughly $1,027 before taxes get taken out for your paycheck. And that is $54 more than what you would have been making last year. From the rank of an E2, if you had like an associate's degree, maybe you had 4 years of JROTC experience, a few other scenarios that probably could, allow you to come in the Army as a higher rank. And I'll pop up a card up on the video that kind of explains different ways you can come in the Army at a higher rank. But let's say you join as an E3 with less than 2 years in the Army. So you make $2,161 per month, which breaks down to $1,080 per paycheck. And that is $57 more than what you would have been making in 2021. Now from an E3, now if you had college, you had like a bachelor's degree, maybe a couple other scenarios allowed you to join as an E4, that is making $2,393 per month, which breaks down to $1,196 per paycheck, and it is $63 more than what you would have been making last year. Now, a smaller portion of my audience is maybe someone who wants to join as an officer, but I'll give you a little bit of a breakdown as to what you might be looking at if you're trying to join as an officer, as let's say in this scenario, a cadet, someone who's still in the training, you have not yet commissioned as an officer. Cadets make $1,218 per month, which breaks down to $609 per paycheck, and that is $32 more than last year. So this is just your basic cadet who is not yet commissioned as an officer yet, maybe still going through training, still going through college, whatever the case might be. But when they do finally commission as a lieutenant, as an O1, that breaks down to $3,477 per month, which breaks down to $1,738 per paycheck. And that is $91 more than what you would have been making previous year. So I got a couple of scenarios that we'll kind of run through. I'll give you a couple of scenarios as to what you might be looking at for married soldiers. Because if you're a single soldier, you're living in the barracks. You don't have rent. You don't have utilities. So your base pay is what you're getting, with the exception of if you're overseas, you're deployed, you're maybe getting jump pay or something like that. But your base pay is all you're getting. But for those of you out there that are married, you do receive a little bit more because there are more pay incentives to help you out if you are a married soldier. So let's run through some of those scenarios to kind of give you an idea as to what you might be making. And we're starting off with a married E2 because you're not usually an E1 for very long, 6 months usually, and then you make it up to E2. So you did your initial training, maybe you're a unit for a couple of months or whatever, and you make it to E2, or maybe you even got promoted in basic training or AIT or OSIT to E2. And also it depends on where you're stationed at as far as what your housing allowance is going to be. So in this scenario, we're using Fort Carson. So that's where I was stationed at last. That's where I still currently kind of work at. And so that's the scenario we're kind of going off of. So as an E2 married soldier, all right, you're gonna be making your base pay still, that $2,055 of base pay. But then you also receive your housing allowance, which is your BAH. That is $1,986 for the Fort Carson area. And it will fluctuate based on where you're at. If you're more in the California area, I think it's a higher rate, as well as like New York area. Certain other areas might be higher than this, than the Fort Carson area, so it might be lower. So it will depend on where you're at. But then you have your BAS, which is for food, and that is a set rate for enlisted soldiers, which is $406. So you would add that up. That gives you $4,447 per month before taxes get taken out, and roughly breaks down to $2,223 per paycheck before taxes get taken out as an E2 stationed at Fort Carson. So that's a scenario possibly you could find yourself in. If you're going to be coming in as an E3, E4, whatever, then obviously it's going to be higher than this. But that is the picture for like the enlisted side. So if we look at it from the officer's side, well, it doesn't matter if you're married or single, officers cannot live in the barracks. So they're going to be receiving BAH and BAS for where they're at. So that is going to be a set thing no matter if you're single or married. And that looks like, of course, your basic, pay for your base pay for an O1, which is $3,477. Then you're adding in your BAH for the Fort Carson area, which is $2,064. Your BAS for officers is lower. That is $280. So that comes out to, before taxes, $5,543 per month, and breaks down to $2,771 per paycheck. So maybe I didn't cover your scenario, right? And you want to try to figure out, well, how do I figure it out for an E3, for an E4, for an O2, whatever the case might be, or you're going to Fort Hood, Texas, for your first duty assignment, whatever. So how do I figure that out? Well, let me give you some different scenarios as to how you can kind of figure that out on your own, because really all you have to do is take your base pay, right? I'm going to leave links down in the description box to utilize to help you figure this out. So you use your base pay, whatever your rank you're coming in as, E1, E2, whatever, take that base pay. You add in your BAH, obviously for married soldiers. Again, if you're single, you're living in the barracks, so you don't factor this in, right? You pretty much, your equation stops at base pay. But for married soldiers, you add in your BAH for your duty station, right? If you are trying to figure it out for while you're in basic training AIT, then it's going to go off of where your spouse lives at. That's your home of record. So if your spouse is living in California, Texas, whatever city, whatever kind of a thing, you're going to have to use that calculator that I got down below, put in the zip code for where your spouse will be at, and that will be your BAH rate for that area while you're in your initial training. And then when you go to your first duty station, then it switches over to that. Your BAS for enlisted soldiers is $406.98 exactly. And for officers, it is $280.29. Now, if you're trying to, again, figure it out for while you're in basic training AIT, OSIT, whatever, you do not receive BAS while you're in that kind of phase because you're being fed by the training installation by the TRADOC. So you don't need the BAS because you're not, having to pay for food, right? So you don't actually receive that. So you would take all that stuff, add it together. That would give you your monthly pay. And then if you just take it and divide it by 2, that is what your paycheck would look like on the 1st and the 15th of the month. If the 1st or the 15th is a holiday or a weekend, then you get paid prior to that. If you have certain banks like USA and other things, then sometimes you get paid a couple days early. But that's basically how you kind of figure that out, to try to figure out what your paycheck is going to look like for, each month for the 1st and the 15th, whether you're married. And again, if you're single, it just pretty much stops at base pay. Now, one other factor to kind of consider too, if you are a married soldier, you have the option to either live on post housing if it's available, or off post housing. If you choose to live in on post housing, you will not receive that BAH because that is your housing allowance to pay for rent or utilities or mortgage, whatever it is you're doing. So you only receive that BAH money if you're going to be living off post. So make sure you kind of calculate that into your scenario as to if you're going to be living on post or you're going to be living off post. That is regardless of if you're enlisted or an officer, same scenario. Officers, same kind of a thing, as well as enlisted. So on post compared to off post. So if you want to figure it all out, there's links down in the description box for you to figure out all of those different scenarios you want to do. Check out links for social media, the Discord channel. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel, especially if you want to learn more about the United States Army. Thanks for watching. I'm Christopher Chaos. I'll see you next time. See ya.